thanks again to organizers and to the faculty and to all who came to listen to my paper. And here is the structure of my paper. Introduction, then secularity and authenticity, New Age transhumanism, the importance of authenticity, and the task of religious communities and institutions. And here is the abstract and the keywords. Now, for the economy of time, I will read my paper. So, introduction. This paper is part of my broader project of exploring modernity, its genesis, its traps, hardships, catastrophes, as well as its achievements. In this context, I also dealt with existential and sacral violence. Many important thinkers have explained the origins of this violence. Let me mention just two. Georges Bataille explained it by the loss of intimacy, which occurred earlier, but in modern times, the immersion in the world of things and work has reached a special intensity. Leszek Kołakowski wrote about the revenge of the sacred, which was abolished in modern times. Both pointed out the existential source of violence and its connection to the sacred. The sacred, however, is a matter of the transcendence that the Enlightenment, as Horkheimer and Adorno found in the dialectics of enlightenment, sought to eliminate in order to get rid of anxiety. In this paper, I argue that extreme transhumanism is a modern threat to respect for transcendence. So this is the basis, that transhumanism is a threat to respect for transcendence, and this is everything for me. If we abolish transcendence, then we are in trouble. Within the framework of modernity, two moments have developed that cannot be understood separately from each other: the Enlightenment and Romanticism. Both are crucial to understanding violence. Also, the ideal of authenticity, which is the central idea of our modern Western moral grammar, and which is an important negative factor in violence, is the child of Romanticism. In what follows, I will consider authenticity in the context of New Age and transhumanism. The first can be understood as a form of neo-Romanticism, and the second as a form of neo-Enlightenment. I will sketch the argument that extreme transhumanism, unlike the New Age, is a threat to modern Western moral and political liberal democratic grammar, as there is no basis in it for respecting the value of authenticity. Secularity and authenticity. Based on the findings of Charles Taylor, one of the most credible researchers and hermeneutic interpreters of our time, we can say that the current age of Western society has two key characteristics. First, secularism, and second, the ideal of authenticity. Taylor defined the secular era as an era in which exclusive humanism became a practical possibility and a sociologically relevant mass phenomenon. Exclusive humanism is an understanding that does not refer to or take into account anything that is beyond human prosperity. The ideal of authenticity means loyalty to oneself. It means the tendency to become what and who we really are. This ideal is appropriate for our age, in which moral grammar is marked by a distinction between ethics and morality. Ethics deals with the good or the good life, and morality speaks to what is right or just. In modern times, philosophy can no longer directly judge what a good life is. In this respect, it is characterized by a posture of restraint, and this posture is difficult to criticize or refuse, as Habermas showed. The ideal of authenticity is of a formal nature. It can be used for worldviews that are completely different in content, even incompatible, contradictory. Thus, for example, both an atheist and a theist can achieve an authentic life. Therefore, the ideal of authenticity is acceptable for our age and its moral grammar, as it does not violate the division into morality and ethics that is an integral part of this grammar. Another characteristic of the secular age is that in it, worldviews, due to mutual interaction, have become fragile, in the sense that everyone is aware that his view may be wrong. The fragility of worldviews in the secular age, observed by Taylor, may, in some respects, increase the sensitivity of members of secular society, their openness and tolerance, as they are aware that their views may be wrong. But it also brings anxiety in Kierkegaard's sense of the word. Anxiety in this sense is a feeling of insecurity. It involves the awareness that we can walk different paths, that we can choose path A or B or C, etc., but we are not sure if we have, existentially speaking, made the right decision. This feeling of insecurity is a source of anxiety. Man is already inherently, in itself, as such, a being of anxiety, because he is aware that he can go the different existential paths and the fact that he can go the wrong way. Throughout history, we have witnessed a great attempt to overcome anxiety. As already mentioned, Horkheimer and Adorno, in the dialectic of the Enlightenment, characterized the Enlightenment project as an attempt to get rid of anxiety by eliminating transcendence. So the idea was, what causes anxiety is transcendence. Eliminate transcendence, you eliminate anxiety. We know the consequences. In the modern technological age, technology puts us in front of various options to choose from. These choices are by no means insignificant, but concern the very foundations of man, society, and environment. In many ways, they can be downright fatal. For example, the possibility of liberal eugenics. This can be understood as a form of transhumanism, as will be seen later in this paper. Jürgen Habermas pointed out its incompatibility with modern Western moral grammar. By the term liberal eugenics, I mean prenatal interventions in the embryo genome to enhance a person's abilities, e.g. in terms of mathematical ability at the expense of some other abilities such as athletic. Habermas convincingly showed that such interventions are incompatible with modern Western morality, as they threaten or even block the possibility that a programmed person might develop into autonomous and responsible individuals. Such individuals are the foundation of modern free Western democracy. Therefore, we can say that liberal eugenics, from the point of view of moral grammar of modern Western society, contains a contradiction. On the one hand, its proponents invoke the principle of radical autonomy and freedom of man as one of the main building blocks of modern Western moral grammar, but on the other hand, liberal eugenics threatens or even undermines this very grammar. So, very simple. You can have autonomous and authentic individuals only without intervention in the genome of the fetus. But these autonomous and authentic individuals are necessary condition for actual liberal democracy. So all these people, on the radical transhumanists, on one hand, they advocate the not just liberal democracy, but libertarian forms of liberal democracy. But on the other hand, at the very ground of this democracy, they undermine it because they undermine the autonomous and authentic individual. So we have contradiction. It doesn't fit together. It is a threat. New Age and transhumanism, and this is Habermas' point in his paper, in his book on the future of human nature. New Age and transhumanism. I wrote a simple summary of his article in our book on transhumanism by Slovakia, edited by me and my colleague Bojan. So if anybody wants, I can send it. It's a little bit condensed form because Habermas is not easy to read. Now the new chapter, New Age and Transhumanism. New Age covers a diverse range of phenomena like transhumanism. It is characterized by eclecticism and syncretism. Quote, I quote Beggars, the thinking of the religions of the New Age is eclectic, drawn from various sources, and syncretistic, because it seeks to combine all religious thought and doctrine to the lowest common denominator, unquote. New Age is an umbrella term, but we could, in English sense, umbrella term, but we could also say that it is a concept of family resemblance in Wittgensteinian sense of the word, Wittgenstein, which means that its content is a set of properties, but none of the subsets of these properties provide either the necessary or sufficient conditions that a certain phenomenon must meet in order to fall under the New Age concept. Another feature of the term New Age is fuzziness. Fuzzy logic deals with the entities and the class of entities that have grades. For instance, a penguin or a sparrow. Is a penguin a bird? Is a sparrow a bird? And if you have a psychological test, and the tested person will press immediately button with the picture of sparrow. Stereotypical bird. But with the penguin, she or he will hesitate. So you have a degree of stereotypeness by the members of the class. This is fuzzy logic. Not member, not just 1 and 0, but you have grades. You can belong to the concept with the grade 0, 3. Or 0, and sparrow has 1, and penguin has less. So, okay, this is, and so we have also in this New Age stereotypical examples of New Age. Some are more typical than others. It's very heterogeneous. So another feature of the term New Age is its fuzziness. By stereotyping, we mean that the sparrow is a more typical specimen of a bird than a penguin. The notion of a bird is therefore a fuzzy notion. The fact that New Age is a fuzzy concept therefore means that some examples of the New Age and some characteristics are more stereotypical of the New Age than others and can be attributed to a higher degree of belonging to the concept of New Age than others. A future that has a high degree of modern stereotyping is the emphasis on advocacy of non-institutional religiosity. This is highly stereotypical for New Age, emphasis of non-institutional religiosity. Non-institutional religiosity is also a feature that the German sociologist Ulrich Beck highlights as a feature of contemporary Western religiosity. Another very stereotypical feature of the New Age is the emphasis of techniques, and as a third I can mention a kind of neo-Gnosticism. Neo-Gnosticism, very simple, means the neglecting of the importance of the body, and this is the feature of transhumanism, the neglect the importance of the body. These ideas of implementation of human person on computer is extreme form of techno-Gnosticism. Like the New Age, transhumanism is an expression that cannot be clearly defined. The first reason is the fact that transhumanism is by no means, like Michal said already, a homogeneous movement but a diverse orientation. Transhumanism seeks to improve or enhance, enhancement is the crucial word. So enhancement is the crucial word, and this is the difference. Christian discourse talks about flourishing, and also Aristotelian about flourishing, and they are talking about enhancements. This is also on the level of discourse you can imagine. Our concept is flourishing, achieving full humanity, and they are talking technically about the enhancement. This is very important for me. So, transhumanism seeks to improve or enhance one's health, reduce or eliminate suffering, achieve extraordinary abilities, inhabit other planets, achieve immortality, and so on. All its representatives promise and advocate the improvement of man through modern science, technology, and pharmacology, but differ in how radically they want to change man or even surpass him, abolish or relinquish him, how they understand this change or abolishment and relinquishment, what they consider possible and ethically permissible, etc. Certainly, their views contain many ambiguities, as well as traps and dangers that require answers from both ethical and religious points of view. Transhumanism in many ways shows a connection to the New Age. It can be considered its successor, which more than New Age corresponds to the modern technological age and the mentality and intoxication of humanity with modern technological achievements. On the one hand, we can observe some romantic elements in the New Age, but on the other hand, we could talk about transhumanism as a kind of neo-enlightenment. Like the Enlightenment, transhumanism promises to significantly reduce or even eliminate the limitation of man and his suffering. In any case, transhumanism is related to the Enlightenment orientation. I quote Sturm, this is a German theologian. Transhumanism, in its continuous scientific optimism and thinking of progress, is related to Enlightenment tendencies which see in the rational penetration or analysis of nature the path to its manageability and improvement of human living conditions, unquote. In this paper, I focus on extreme transhumanism. It is a position that promises and seeks to end virtually all human limitations and suffering. These limitations include physical limitation, including understanding the body as unnecessary or even undesirable, and even immortality. But some transhumanists, there is hostility to not just that body is not necessary, but hostility or immortality. Extreme transhumanism sees no value in human limitations. This is very important. Extreme transhumanism sees no value in human limitation and suffering. Suffering has no value. In its basic orientation, it is therefore incompatible with the central message of world religion. What religions are for me? Islam, Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, Confucianism. These are world religions. So there is a direct opposition between world religions and the transhumanism. Transhumanism, radical transhumanists say, the way to human perfection is the removal of limitations. And the message of world religions is the way to full humanity is acceptance of our limitations. This is the first condition, and then you can grow. This is very theological fundamental important for me. So it's direct opposition to the message of all world religions, not just Christianity. Why radical? So since this acceptance acceptance of limitations, also means the acceptance of suffering, the views of extreme transhumanism and world religions are diametrically opposed to suffering. For fourth religions, Christianity, you can grow only through suffering. And for radical transcendence, suffering is the greatest enemy. It's utilitarian position, hedonistic in a sense, and they see no value in suffering. But we know that for us, suffering is absolutely fundamental. No humanity, full humanity without suffering. There is a similarity between the Enlightenment and extreme transhumanism. Both the Enlightenment and the transhumanists promised and advocated the removal of man's limitation and his prosperity. Segregation in removing restrictions, however, has catastrophic effects. The ultimate removal of limitation is the abolition of transcendence. This is the main limitation, which, however, has proven to be the abolition of respect for humanity, history, which is in this. Because, for instance, I am a personalist. The essential personalism is incompatible with radical things. And I think personalism can offer the right, and totalitarian movements like Nazism and communism, 20th century, these are the extreme violation of personalistic ethic, or with other words, extreme violation of respect for transcendence. And this is historical evidence of what are the consequences of abolishing transcendence. And this is the main, this is the basis. This is the basis. Even extreme transhumanism actually promised and wants to abolish transcendence, which in turn means paving the way for a new catastrophe. Another similarity between the dangerous forms of the Enlightenment and transhumanism is that both forms are versions of exclusive humanism in Taylor's sense. In extreme forms of transhumanism, human prosperity paradoxically means transcending humanity or abolition of it, because it is best for human, their greater prosperity, or even their person in accordance with the nature that have to transcend. So it is best for human to stop being the human. So the best for human, for people, is to abolish humanity. This is paradox in a sense, you know. You said that human being is such a being that the best for him is that he abolish himself. Let us return to exclusive humanism. The effects of the Enlightenment and the dangers of extreme transhumanism point to the dangerous potential that exclusive humanism carries within itself. This potential is abolition or disregard for transcendence. Maybe we can paradoxically say that we really work for human when we are not just about human, or even more when human is not our priority, even though we love them. Such was the position of Søren Kierkegaard, who taught that we must love people, but our priority must be God. We must love God incomparably more than any human being and more than anything else. This is the only path to true human prosperity. But it is not necessary for a human to be an ardent believer to be aware of the importance of transcendence for the good of human. An example of this is the atheist Theodor Adorno. His main point is about transcendence, non-identity, and so on. There are similarities between the New Age and transhumanism. Like certain forms of transhumanism, those forms of the New Age that contain Gnosticism or overemphasizes on the power of techniques are incompatible with world religions, especially monotheistic ones. Therefore, we can say that, despite the important differences between the two, both the New Age and extreme transhumanism, in one way or another, reject or exclude the essential components of world religions. New Age also includes popular ideas about the radical change of human nature, the development of human consciousness, the arrival of new man and the new age, the development of a new higher species than man, the quantum leap in human progress, and so on. From this point of view, extreme transhumanism sounds almost like a transformed new age, a new age, suitable for the mindset and taste of men of the technological age. A new offer in the same genre, but more scientifically wrapped, more suited to the scientific consciousness, just as the new age was extremely popular and its stronger connection with naturalism helped it to be more attractive to the modern Westerner than pure Eastern mysticism, from which New Age has otherwise taken much. However, as already mentioned, there are also significant differences between transhumanism and the New Age that are important for the topic of this paper. As already mentioned, the ideal of authenticity is the child of the 18th century Romanticism. Because of their romantic nature, the forms of New Age were able to find space for the ideal of authenticity. This is now crucial. This is one of the top 3 arguments from my paper. What is the biggest difference? My thesis is that transhumanism is a bigger threat than New Age. Why? Because for our modern democratic liberal grammar and order, as I explained, the ideal of authenticity is the central ideal of our liberal democracy. And in transhumanism, in the horizons of transhumanism, there is no place for authenticity. I can make a copy, whatever, eugenics and so on. Change your genome, change genome of the fetus or whatever. But in New Age, the ideal of authenticity is strongly present. To be yourself, to fulfill your being. Maybe in a consumerist, more or less consumerist way, but it is. And so this is the ideal of authenticity is crucial. What religious communities and churches do, to do everything to defend the human authenticity. Because this is at stake now, more than ever, because of technological power. What, authentic or not? And this is so therefore radical transhumanism is so dangerous. Undermines the very basis of our freedom and democracy from this political sense. So this is the big difference. No place for authenticity in transhumanism, but there is despite all these similarities I said between transhumanism and New Age. So the next chapter is the importance of the value of authenticity and the task of religious communities and institutions. The ideal of authenticity is not only an ideal with great political potential, but also a religious potential. Indeed, in the case of actual or post-actual world religions, like Hinduism, Confucianism, and then post-actual Islam and before Christianity. Indeed, in the case of actual, post-actual world religions, in the sense of Karl Jasper's the authenticity is a condition for true religiosity, and undermining the ideal of authenticity undermines not only modern Western morality, but also genuine religiosity. Not just morality in the sense of Sittlichkeit, but also religiosity, an additional point. In this sense, transhumanism is a greater challenge for traditional religious communities than New Age. New Age is incompatible with world religions for several reasons. For example, for the sake of neognosis. In addition, it partially contributed to the spread of misconceptions about the importance of the institutionalization of religion. And we could go on and on. In the directions of transhumanism, as in the New Age, we can recognize the characteristic of Gnosticism. This is true, for example, of those forms of which belittle the importance of the body. In this regard, these forms can be described as techno-Gnosticism. Some forms of transhumanism, like some forms of New Age, are hostile to traditional forms of religiosity, like Michael showed in the case of Moore, which is one of the major representatives of transhumanism. In short, there are not just few similarities between New Age and transhumanism. However, as I have already pointed out, there is a fundamental difference between New Age and transhumanism, at least in its extreme forms. In it, unlike New Age, there is no place for the value of authenticity. What follows from the above about the task and the mission of religion and religious communities and institutions in the modern world? It is certainly imperative that they are aware of the main features of the modern situation in order to function properly. They must first be aware that a return to a pre-modern state of genuine pre-secular spirituality and religiosity is not possible. Second, they must be aware that secular society is the result of a long historical transformation that began in the 16th century, and that both atheists and theists in the West are products, in quotation mark, of this same development, and as Charles Taylor said, siblings under the skin. We are Western atheists. You know, it was, once I read some text, a book, and one Westerner said that he met a Turkish man, and he said that his Turkish man said that he is an atheist, and his Western was also an atheist. And the Western said, so we are both atheists. And this said, yeah, but I am Islamic atheist and you are Christian atheist. So we are siblings under the skin, Western atheists, and because the projects of the same history, the same transformation. This fraternity can be a basis for dialogue, solidarity, or at least fair cooperation. As far as authenticity is concerned, religious communities and institutions should be aware that modern man requires an approach that is consistent with this ideal. Such an approach must be more sensitive, empathetic, and reflective than in the past. Only in this way can churches and religious communities keep in touch with modern human. In addition to all this, they must be aware and act accordingly that their task is not only to adapt to a culture of authenticity, but also to protect and cultivate the ideal of authenticity. This is a key moment in the struggle to preserve humanity in the center of humanitas. This is our most important and fundamental task, which is especially difficult and responsible in the technological age. Conclusion. Transhumanism is similar to its historical predecessor, the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment also proclaimed itself an advocate of man and the basic building blocks of our modern Western moral grammar, and some of them were also formulated and enforced for the first time by the Enlightenment. But on the other hand, the Enlightenment allowed for phenomena that were diametrically opposed to those that the proponents of the Enlightenment would have desired. The same can be said of extreme transhumanism. Following its program and ideas could have catastrophic consequences for man. The very absence of the value of authenticity is extremely dangerous from the point of view of modern Western moral grammar, and the fundamental and greatest danger is the disrespect for transcendence, which, like certain forms of enlightenment, is manifested by some extreme transhumanists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bojan. No, we can record the discussion as well. Thank you for this provocative, a very presentation that was full of ideas, some of which were quite stirring and provocative, especially to ears that might be more inclined to listening to narratives that are more secular or more New Age flavored and so on. So I wonder, it's a pity actually that we don't have proponents of some of these movements among us, that we are more or less a homogeneous group,
Yeah.
right? Because it would be even better if they could respond.
Better for you, but
yeah.
not for me.
Okay, so now the floor is open for questions, please.
I appreciate your paper very much because I'm very interested in the field of new age religions and new age, how the new age understand the spirituality and so on. So from what I know, I noticed something here. The secularization produces a new understanding of our lives. On the one hand, it produces a clear separation between sacred and secular. And on the other hand, it creates the new possibilities for the presence of religious pluralism in society. So my first question is transhumanism applicable to this new way of understanding spirituality as unrooted in a religion? Has transhumanism something to do with religion, with the sacred?
Yeah, good question. Well, Gandhi once said, those who think that religion and politics are separated entities, they don't have no clue, neither about the politics nor about religion. So the roots, the deepest roots of every political and social movement are always somehow religious. Always. At the end you have faith, article of faith. At the end you have knowledge how. Not just the content, not just declaration, but you must, the way how would you believe. I can say, the God is Trinity. If I feel this somehow or not, this is different. Nobody can discursively, of course, this is a mystery. And such a, so yeah, transhumanism is, I think, it's a heterogeneous movement, but when we look to the genesis of the transhumanist thought, I don't set my answer about this genesis and this genetic hermeneutics. This is what I presented, the genetic hermeneutic, genealogical hermeneutics. Like Charles Taylor do this stuff, Jürgen Habermas and so on. I just pointed to this enlightenment component, but sociologically it started already on Renaissance, where the natural law was abolished, in a sense, for the sake of positive law. And it started already in Renaissance, and then through Enlightenment, and then through the culmination of utilitarianism in economy, in everyday life. And it goes very well with abolishments of transcendence. Because, what is exclusive humanism in Taylor's sense? Charles Taylor's written book, the major work in last decades on the genesis of secular age. Yeah. And he said we have three meanings of secularization. The first is the distinction between different subsystems of society and their autonomy. In the secular age, economy, education, science, all these subsystems of society are autonomous. And he said, and the second is that people don't go anymore to churches. the number of Sunday visitors is decreasing, and so this is but the third meaning in which he is actually interested is defined with the concept of exclusive humanism. Secular age is the first time in human history that the secular exclusive humanism became a sociological reality, not just some elite. You know, you have Epicureans, could be atheist in antiquity, but on sociological scale. Sociological. And exclusive humanism is an approach and a position that you could describe and formulate everything what is needed for human without referring to some transcendence. And this fits very good with utilitarianism and with scientism. But because one of the roots and the nerves of utilitarianism is their passion to calculate everything. Even Karl Marx said that Bentham was a small owner of grocery shop. You know, his 3x. So they want to calculate, and in order to be able to calculate, they are reducing. So that if we have here Imago Dei topic in Transhumanism, is this reduction is present also in transhumanism. They reduce so far that they can they can cover with this reduced ideology human being. So yeah, it fits very good with this element. It fits good with exclusive humanism. It fits good with, if this is part of secularization, it fits good with scientific tension. It fits good with the ideology of tolerance. This is also a very important thing. They are enforcing transhumanism under the cover of tolerance. But on the other hand, they are totally intolerant to their opponents. For instance, the opponents of abortion. Of course we can abort, this is manageability.
Yeah.
But they are totally intolerant to the opponents of abortion. Or some other things, you know, to the opponents of euthanasia, etc. So this is typically for our modern age, especially for our late modernity. You, under the cover of tolerance, you are totally intolerant. And this is also present in people like Moore and so on. And so all this scientism, passion to calculate. If you want to calculate, you must reduce. And then the use of ideology of tolerance and being at the same time tolerance. So, you know, in a sense, it is, we can rationally say, I think we can ground the thesis. The transhumanism, as Michael said, is not so special. It is a sense, it's quotation mark, a natural fruit of evolution of our Western society. We should not be surprised if you all these factors. Transhumanism is just something for our technological age. It is in 20th century we had political totalitarianism, which were extreme forms of violating personalistic ethics, and in 21st century we have radical transhumanism, which is an extreme violation of personalist ethics.
Evolution of society or evolution of human being? What is the aim of the transhumanism ideology?
Again we have problems, you know. this is utilitarian. Philosophically, this is basic utilitarianism and vulgar utilitarianism, because John Stuart Mill, it's a little bit deeper than Bentham, and so on. If you read on liberty and utilitarianism and so on, he was more cultivated. It is a hedonistic, and basic is utilitarianism. And if we can, utilitarians reduces the man on this self-interest and on utilities. And then they calculate and had what is our maxim, the maximum happiness and maximization of happiness and minimization of pain. And then when they say, okay, somebody could say from Christian point of view, yeah, but then this is not a problem, because then he said, this sum of these utilities is a common good. But common good is not just a sum of selfish utilities. So in a sense, they can use the phrase common good, but if they ask them, what is this common good? They are not able to answer it. And because the common good is not just the sum of the units, but it's more. The common good is the whole, which is more than its parts. And this is too much for this, let's say, utilitarian mind. They cannot understand. This is like human being, For instance, there is a very simple story, also in cognitive science, in 80s and 20th century. For instance, Hubert Dreyfus was a philosopher, a brother of, actually, he has written already in the 70s what computers can do, and then a few decades later what computers can do. His origins was phenomenological tradition, Heidegger, Being in the World, and so on. He has written a very good book, Being in the World, comment on the part 1 of Sein and Zeit, so Being and Time of Heidegger's in the World. And Hubert Dreyfus, for instance, said that there is no human being without human body. But your human body is not just the sum of components, but is present in every component of human being. It is a substance which is a part of every accident, to put in Brentanian terms, Franz Brentano. It's a German philosopher. I spent 1 year in Würzburg, Franz Brentano Institute. So all these, mistakes. So this position is philosophically very poor. It's impoverishment of philosophical discourse, because they don't know the tradition and they don't respect it. All these mereological arguments from Aristotle through Aquinas, through Brentano, even for Husserl, mereology is the science of parts and wholes, And Husserl, for instance, said that the most important, the best starting point, introduction to his philosophy is his third logical investigation. And the third logical investigation is about parts and wholes. So the master himself, 20 years after the appearance of the Bible of phenomenology, logical investigation, said that mereological is the part. So you have metaphysical mistakes. This is mereological mistakes, introductionism. And then you have also a simplified versions of human society and so on. So it is a reductionism of personalistic, I'm personally so used to personalistic view, which is, Catholic view is personalistic, It was, especially in the Second Vatican Council, it was established, Before it was stressed more natural law, but on the Second Vatican Council it was personalistic direction, officially established. So all these, so I said, my answer to this human being, human society, it is connected, and they cannot define common good. But common good is a crucial concept for really evolving society. You cannot define good society without using the concept of common good. It's impossible. It's impossible.